Hello, welcome back. So, what we're going to do in today's tutorial is we're going to go ahead and we're going to start sewing everything together. Now, this is a tutorial that I don't really feel is necessary for intermediate level people. Sewing is just as simple as moving and sewing. Finding what edges you need to put together and then moving and sewing. But I'll go ahead and I'll show a few tips. I'll get started a little bit, and then I'll pause the video, and then I'll return for some optimization for putting everything into Mudbox. So, starting out, like I said, I don't really know exactly what I'm going to tell you with this. But here we have all of our UVs for our objects. I just did select all, did it. We've already laid out for this. So if we turn on this toggles the shaded UVs, and it'll be red if the UVs are flipped backwards. So you're going to want to make sure that you have them all blue, otherwise you're going to have issues when you try and sew them together. So if you're having some funky issues going on, that could be why. Second little tip is this icon here that dims the image. It's pretty simple. When you have something really bright or even white, it's going to be hard to see your edges and UVs. So you just hit that and it goes ahead and it makes everything dark for you. Your image is still the same image as it was before. And that's that. So when I start mapping, what I like to do is, of course, first I go one object at a time. I deleted all of our other objects because we didn't need them. And like I said, you want to be working in this area. That's why we did, part of the reason why we did layout. And I just find the most obvious area that I want to work with, the easiest to sew together and visualize. And when you're mapping, what you're really doing is you're deciding which seams you can't live without, or which connections you can't live without. So since we're putting this in Mudbox, the fact of the matter is that we don't have to necessarily have 100% perfection, because we can paint across edges, but we're going to want, it makes it easier for the software to do that when you have connected components connected. So, and also every UV that we can get rid of gets rid of the requirement for those UVs in the engine. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to start out by taking this edge here. I'm going to unfold this into pretty much a square. I'm going to take this edge here and shift right click up is your markup menu for move and sew UVs, and it'll move the shell that is smaller. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm just hitting G, 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 G. Good game, good game. Now something we're going to be looking out for is we don't want to have overlapping UVs. So we're going to be making sure that we don't do that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab these UVs and I'm going to smush them down here so that I can see what I'm doing a little better. But like I said, I don't know why this happens or if it has been changed, corrected maybe in Maya 2013. But if you do go ahead and you move and sew outside of this region, it'll sometimes start offsetting your UVs, and we don't want that. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to sew what I can, making sure for Mudbox or ZBrush you want to make sure you have no overlapping UVs. That's absolutely critical. And shaded UVs will help you see that. Go in here and I'm going to make sure that I'm not overlapping, because if you do start overlapping, let's go ahead and do it, it's going to get a little bit darker. I think there's an option for showing overlapping UVs more clearly. No, I think the best way to see is just through the through that. So I'm going to put these as a separate mesh here. Or a separate shell, not mesh. The reason I keep doing that is because my keyboard, remember how I said I have the mobile keyboard? So now I can't move and sew these over, because if I do, I'm going to start overlapping. So let's just see what this edge is. When I sew it, that's not good. See how it's a little darker in there? It's because they're overlapping. We don't want any overlapping. That's not going to work either. So that's just going to have to go ahead and be separate components. And I'd rather have this bend here mapped than connected than these little parts on the side. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take these shell. I'm just going to lay them out over here so that I know they're not part of this non-sewn mess down here. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep moving with this. Grab these UVs. I hold them a little close. I want them a little further away. And I'm just going to carry on. Oh, didn't want to get selected there. So in that case, I decided I want this connection to be on the side that you're... Actually, no, I want it on the other side. I want it to be on the other side for a reason, though. Because it's going to be harder, because when you're viewing from this view, it's going to be like something like this. They've got the gun here. But someone else viewing the weapon can view it from any angle. Top, bottom, left, right, front, bam, you're getting shot. So I'd rather have this this texture border here than over there. And like I said, we're working in Mudbox, so the ramifications of that are going to be minimal. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go into edge mode here. When you're trying to zoom in on a component, say I want to find these UVs, focus on these UVs. I want to focus on these UVs. But I'm in face mode. It's not going to take me to those UVs. Instead, you have to be in the UV mode, and then clicking F will focus on it. So that's a little tip. That's something my coworkers that I train have an issue with sometimes, so I figure you guys can benefit from it. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to zoom in on this edge. Which is going to show me both sides of the edge. So I'm going to hit Control here. You can see that as that edge, and it's somewhere down here. So I'm going to move and sew this, this, and I'm checking to see if I'm overlapping, which since it's spreading out the bevel here, I shouldn't have any overlapping. Go ahead and I'm going to move all these. You can drag over If the other UVs are already sewn, it's not going to resew them. But there I'm sewing these together, and I'm debating if I want to do that or not. Because then it's not going to be perfectly 1-1 sewn there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to not do that because I want the 1-1 pixel ratio. It's going to take a little longer. If you're doing like a face or something that you weren't going to paint in Mudbox or ZBrush, then you'd go ahead and just sew it, and when you're in Photoshop, you'll give up a little stretching, you know. It's probably not significant here, and it would probably be worth it for optimization. So actually, I'm going to do it because we're going to get rid of these extra UVs in here. And UVs are rendered just like vertices are. Wow, longest delay in talking ever. But that's what happens when you're trying to make a selection. You can't focus on more than 3 things at a time. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that. I'm not going to do that one because it started curving that. I don't want to do that. What I can do is I can take this UV and I can snap it to the other UV. And then I'm getting a little movement, a little extra stretching out of one of them. But I'm not stretching the one that I explicitly don't want moved. Go ahead and grab this. See, that's a long way to stretch. But it's on the bottom here anyway. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say it's okay. And that's your own decision. Because really, you have to think about how much space is being occupied, how many pixels are really going to be affected by that stretching. And in this case, it's really not a lot. Unless you're zooming in very closely to this object. Actually, in a second, I'm going to show you something something else nifty. Instead of doing those manual pixel snaps, go ahead. I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to grab this UV and this UV, and I'm going to say snap to the left one. So it goes back to where I want it. There's really not much to say about moving and sewing, besides it's going to take a while. And you can see how this texture works. You can see where the seams are. The rest of the way around, there's no seams, and you can tell that just by looking at the colors and the numbers and everything. So we can go ahead and I'm going to pause it there, and yeah, I'll get back to you when it's time to optimize for Mudbox. Alright, so I'm just going to, I'm not done yet, but I am going to give a little tip for when you are going and doing this. Something useful is when you have your item selected, and you're getting close to being done. Like, it's not incredibly easy for me to find out on this object where I'm missing the things. It looks a little easier with that mark off. But I was wondering what have I missed, and I can just go in here in my UV editor. I have it open in my other monitor, that's why it's in a separate window. And then you can just go ahead and you can grab these UVs, hit F, and there you go. So that's just a quick way of finding that, just a little tip before I get back to finishing that. So I'm going to go ahead and pause again, and next time I will be done. Alright, so I know that I said that last one was going to be the last time I paused midway through. I lied again, because I'm going to show you another trick that comes in handy. And I feel kind of bad that I'm not showing all these tricks. I'm using a couple tricks, but I was starting to feel bad that I wasn't showing you, and that's kind of the point of this series, is to show kind of the intermediate level stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you this one. And this uses pretty much all the other, it's a combination of all the tricks I've done so far. So this one I'm not really concerned about the 1-to-1 pixel ratio, which is normally very important, but this one I'm going to be painting in Photoshop, not Mudbox, because it's going to be a bit of an intricate texture, and you'll see in a second. So obviously you've got these complex edges here that are going to really start screwing up your sewing if you just sew one by one all the way down. And you'll actually see the end result with what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do is, instead of doing that, I'm going to select some edges. This is the one, the outside of the weapon is here, so I'm going to cut on the inside. So someone looking at the weapon won't see this cut. And I've got them all selected, and you can sew multiple UVs together, and as long as I've got this relief cut, you could call it, edge, there's a word for it that Max uses, Max, the program, but you don't need to see what I'm listening to. It looks like a weird song name, but it's like a DJ techno song, so it doesn't really matter. Anyways, and so you can sew all those together at the same time. You'll see that we get some funky shit going on, but not to fear, we can correct that with our smooth UV tool. And we're just going to do the unfold command. We're going to unfold all the way. Get this as rectangular as possible. And that tool is showing up really big here. You can resize the handles for tools by using the plus and minus keys, in case you didn't know. Something I wish I knew before. And I'm just going to put this on this edge here so you can see kind of what this workflow is for. It kind of gave us a straight line, straight enough for our purposes later, because it is curved and it's going to have a little bit of a kink and twist in it, so I'm not too concerned. I'm going to put lines down this later. I might actually just paint on the UV line to get it perfectly straight, but that'll be my decision for that. So as you can see, we're coming along pretty well. I've got a few pieces left, and once I complete those, we will go ahead and I'm going to show you how to import something into Maya, because I made a mistake and I deleted these when I shouldn't have. Those are for my position, and I could have fixed it if I didn't delete my image plane already. So I'm going to show you how to import something so we can snap to those, and hey, learn from my mistakes. Don't delete those, they're for your reference. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to map these last few surfaces, and then we'll get going again. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this. See you in a minute. Alright, so we are back finally. We've got this all modeled just the way we like it. I'm going to close my UV editor so we can see what we're doing there. And go ahead and pop into this one. Select all. You can see that with the exception of these objects, which I can go ahead and delete here, which I'm going to restore in just a second. I'm just deleting them to make a point here. Everything is laid out beautifully. The only thing that's a little disconcerting is, I need to pause Spotify. The only thing that's a little disconcerting is this space in here. But remember, these we couldn't sew, and these we can't sew because no matter which face we sew them on, they're always going to overlap another part of this. So that's unfortunate, but it's not the end of the world. It's on the site, so it's somewhere that you might end up looking. But usually the on GUI item will overtake the power of the actual site. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to duplicate these, just like we did for the geometry render. I'm going to toss these over here. And it looks almost like a toy gun or something. It's kind of funny. This is no toy. Ho 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 ho! I'm so funny. I'm not a comedian. I'm a 3D artist. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this as a new iteration, because we are almost done with it. How much time is actually on this video? Not a lot of time. This is probably going to be the shortest tutorial ever, but I'll go ahead and I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to import something. I'm going to import... No, I'm not going to import that one. Unfortunately, you can't undo an import. So I have to open this back up. I actually want to import before the turntable. And then you'll notice in here it's going to it should, yeah, okay, it's got everything inside a group. Like I said, Maya 2012 and 2013 actually have a lot of differences that you don't really notice. So I'm just going to move this out of the way a little bit. And then I'm going to have this on the edge here. I'm going to duplicate, and I'm just going to snap it over here to this. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Fortunately, I haven't reset any of the pivots since the last time I moved them. And now we can just go ahead and we can delete this group. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go into our Hypershade Editor. We're going to make sure that it didn't add any extra materials. When you're importing from like another user, another computer, it'll throw a new reference to all your materials on here. So you'll want to optimize that and get rid of all those. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to delete by type history and save here. Got some stuff in groups. I don't really like stuff in groups that don't need to be in groups. Select all, delete by type history, and save mapping 8. Because now we've got all those pieces on there, so we'll see a distinct difference between the two files. And now you can see we're looking good. We can go ahead and select all, hop into our editor here, and we're going to lay out our polygons. And you can see that the automatic layout doesn't do a great job. It has a lot of unused space, and we want to use every bit of space we have on this map because the empty space is, oh wow, it even overlapped a little bit here. That's not good. It's not supposed to do that. I'm going to check my settings in layout. Not going to scale it at all. non-overlapping. Flip reverse is fine, doesn't really matter though. Going into region, scale mode none, shell stacking bounded box. There we go. Now it's going to try and fit it a little better. It's still not getting everything in there, but that's because we set the scale mode and it can't fix it otherwise. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start optimizing this for Mudbox. We're going to have fun with that. So what you're looking for when you're optimizing your UVs for Mudbox is you're looking to, number one, maximize the space used on your grid, and number two, you're looking to make sure that there's enough space between objects for a little bit of bleed. And normally you're going to want about at least 4 pixels of bleed in between, because I believe Mudbox uses 5 pixels of bleed, so 4 is plenty over. So the first thing I'm going to notice here is that this shell cannot fit inside the box, no matter, unless it lays it out diagonally, it's not going to fit. So there's somewhere on this model that I'm going to have to make the decision to cut. And I've already given this some consideration, and I believe it's right here. Yeah. This is where I'm going to decide to cut it because it's hidden fairly well. It is at a separation of the two objects. Like we said, this was manufactured separately from this. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to cut that UV, grab a UV, and then grab the shell and go ahead and move that. I'm not going to move it too close to this because I already see what I'm going to want to do here. I'm going to grab these UVs, go to shell. I'm just going to move them close like this. And making sure that I'm leaving some space between it to bleed. And you might, if you've never used 3D painting before, which since this was an intermediate Maya tutorial, I'm assuming that you might not know that much about 3D painting. So that's going to be a little more of a detailed, detail-oriented tutorial program. Let me get this shell in here nice. There we go. Some bleed room. Take this one over here. This one over here. This one will fit in here now. Maybe not. Maybe we want to use that space for something else. It's cutting it a little close. Here, let's go ahead and let's put the grip in here. Yeah, that'll fit nicely in here. Let's grab this next. Put it down here. So if you're a fan of Tetris, this is your thing. And I want to have these fairly close to each other because I am editing them in Photoshop. So go ahead and put them near each other. And one's longer than the other. That's perfectly normal. Here are grips. These are going to have an animated texture on it, but I'm not too concerned about where I drop those. So I can work with those from about anywhere. And I'm trying to stack into a smaller square here. So I'm trying not to go above this point so that I can scale all my UVs up a little bit. So let's see what I can do with this. There we go. That's nice. And you can go ahead and you can rotate if you want to. I wouldn't recommend rotating stuff that's all horizontal in one direction, or that has multiple components. Like I wouldn't turn this grip sideways because I might want to put some lines down through here, and then I'm going to want to be able to match them up over there if I want to later in Photoshop. You never know what you're going to end up editing in Photoshop, but I know that these rubber pieces, I'm just throwing some noise on them. I'm going to use a noise stencil in Mudbox, and that's how I'm going to do those. So I know how I'm going to do those, and I know I'm not going to involve Photoshop at all in them. So I'm not worrying too much about how I place them, if I rotate them, etc., etc. And it doesn't really matter where on the map you place everything. I want to know what this is. These are supposed to be attached here. I thought I sewed these. Well, now those are going to be screwed up here. Let's see if I can still fit them about where they are. Without getting too close to the edge or other geometry. You can go right up to the edge, but it's not recommended because it might start bleeding onto other edges and you might have something there. So it's an option, but I recommend against it. Should be zooming in on those UVs right now. I don't know why it's not. Actually, I can fit those in there. And I'm kind of mirroring them in similar locations, just so that I can find them later if I want to. And be like, oh, this one's here, well, where did I put the other one? Instead of hunting all over the map, I can just go, oh, this one's on this side, so maybe I did the same thing with the other one. And knowing myself, I'd be right. So follow the oracle's advice and know thyself. Don't get that reference? Go watch The Matrix. Seriously, right now. Get off this and go watch The Matrix if you don't get that reference. Because I honestly believe everyone should have a running knowledge of every quote in The Matrix. favorite movies ever. And I would argue best movies ever. But I try and not make statements like that because it causes a lot of rage, especially with something as nerdy as The Matrix. It's not nerdy until you start thinking about it. And if you're not thinking about it, you're probably not a nerd. That's the trigger, in case you're wondering what the hell that is. I would be. I'd be like, what the fuck? I'm going to try and put this in order, or in a straight line here. Now what you can do is you can find the sections that you're going to put more detail on and scale them up. But usually you want to put those on separate maps. This asset, I'm doing a large resolution map, so I'm not really being that concerned about stretching everything. And these pieces should have a lot of detail to them because they are the most prominent feature of the weapon. So regardless of the fact that the stock barrel is the largest piece, and it's you might think you would take the most importance, it doesn't, because these actually I might scale up a little bit because they are pretty important to the function of the weapon. But otherwise, no, I'm not too concerned. I can't remember exactly where I was going with that, so I just ended with, yeah, I'm not too concerned. So pardon me if I didn't finish where my tangent was going. It wasn't really a tangent either. I just can't remember more than 20 seconds before what I said. That's not true. Yeah, it kind of is. And it's pretty bad. But when you've been... Today at work was a fun day. I've been placing decals. If you haven't seen my little tips and tricks video about the decal placement in Unity, the custom homebrew system that works better than writing them in another way. I have been working on that all day. I've just been moving squares with those decals in them, moving them around all day. You have a crazy way of doing because of the nature of the project being a virtual tour of the school, we kind of run into this issue where we're adding a lot of trying to think of how I'm going to do this. We have wide open environments that are just easily prone to overdrawing and draw holes and other things. So we've got a decent layout here. I kind of want to shrink it down a little bit. If I can pull this guy in somewhere, then I can save a lot of space here. So I'm looking at these in here. There we go. That's what we can do. There we go. Now I can throw these in here. This in here. Toss those in there. Now I can scale this guy up. And that's going to maximize our map. Ah. And I'm just trying to squeeze every pixel out. Every pixel counts. And I've got a little bit of bleed there. Got a little bit of bleed there. Less bleed there. Yes. That's alright on both sides. The top is fine. The bottom's less fine. Right, now we're fine. And now we have a pretty well laid out map here. Fantastic. That looks good. That looks good. There's a little bit of a shortage of space in between those, but I'll go and fix that if it becomes a problem, because I think that I've left plenty of space. I think there's enough space between them. So now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hop in here, select all, delete by type history, and save it as mapping 9 underscore complete. And that's what we love to do. So when you're texturing a game asset, you have a few options. Some people use materials in Maya. They go in here, they use rendering nodes, they use the Hypershade, they use all this fun stuff. Really all this stuff in here. Maya surfaces. And then they use the 2D textures. And then they select something, then they go convert to file texture. And it pretty much it bakes on that. It bakes the pixel values to what you're working on, and that it usually doesn't work out very well because number one, when you're working with procedurally generated textures, you don't really understand how it's gonna get compressed down and compacted. So you don't have that visual view of it the whole time. It's looking glorious, beautiful the whole time, and then you go and you bake it and it looks like shit. So you want to avoid that. If you're making a simpler game though, one that just has like colors on it, you can use well, obviously you can use vertex shading first, but you could use those just basic 2D textures and stuff, and those, but you can usually generate those in your engine anyway. I'm going to try and not make this tutorial too long because it's 11 o'clock, and tomorrow we are painting, which is, you can tell by the grin on my face, one of my favorite parts. Your other option is to go ahead and hop in your texture editor. And then you can go polygons, UV snapshot. Save an out UV of your thing. Actually, PNGs are so much better. And then you can hop into Photoshop. Looking for the file. I have this on my desktop. Then you can go into Images folder. You'll have an out UV. And look at that. Beautiful. And then it'll have your UVs laid out here. You can go ahead and you can paint in Photoshop. Take your brush, draw a new layer, and start having fun. This method, for me, produces more static, hardline texturing. You can obviously grunge it up, but the issue is and the reason that we do 3D painting, the whole reason for it, is because you can paint across edges. So, and I guess Photoshop now has some 3D features. I haven't really looked into them, but maybe it's trying to catch up in that field. But as far as I know, they haven't yet. And you can see here, part of the reason that I didn't fret so much about sewing these together is, look, they only have one pixel value in between them for a 2048 map. I might have to go even bigger, which when you're doing powers of 2, once you hit 2048, kind of at a big spot already. It might actually be worth it, and I would hate to do this, and I'm going to sleep on it, to have these as one texture and the model of the weapon itself as the second texture. That way we can get these bigger. It's going to take up more texture memory. It's going to add draw calls, which is never good. Draw calls were made by Satan. And it's not great for optimization, but I'm not sure if I want to make an asset that's good for a game. So I don't want to say what I almost said is I don't think I'm actually going to make a game with this. I think I'm just going to create a fully animated operational asset and then maybe sell it on Creative Clash or something. But the optimization there, it's not the most huge difference in the world. So unless you start getting lots of weapons in a scene, you have like a rack of the gun, and then you've got 48 draw calls all of a sudden. and engines tend to blow draw calls out of proportion too. I had a scene with like 2 draw calls, which it should have been. I was rapid prototyping a project this morning, and it should have had 2 draw calls. It had like 40. So draw calls are something that can get out of hand rapidly. But like I said, I'll sleep on it, and if it's 2 objects tomorrow, don't be surprised. That's where I'm going to end. The third option that I was getting to is what we're going to do tomorrow, which is hop into Mudbox and paint it in Mudbox. Or you can use ZBrush. It's just as good. In fact, many would argue that ZBrush is better. It's just I was trained on Mudbox, and that's the reason that I use it. So there's no specific reason that I chose Mudbox over ZBrush. I'm sure there are reasons that people choose each one. Otherwise, no one would be choosing one of them. So the only reason that I choose Mudbox over ZBrush or any of those other applications, MeshLab, or actually I don't think you can paint in MeshLab. I think it's just an optimization tool. But the reason I chose it is because it's what I learned on. That's all I have for you today. So I hope you enjoyed this this rapid tutorial. And tomorrow we're gonna get to painting. That's gonna be great. So I'll see you guys then.